Hello and welcome back to TAYFam. I am your host, Emmerson, and today I'm joined by two wonderful interns and a guest. Would you introduce yourselves?
Hello, everyone. My name is Levi Rivera, and I'm an intern here at the Multicultural Center of Marin and for TAYFam Marin.
My name is Sulem, and I've been invited here.
Hi, my name is Briza, and I'm also an intern.
Thank you so much for introducing yourself. Before we get into the conversation, I would like to ask a quick icebreaker question. Do you guys prefer ice cream or frozen yogurt?
I think I prefer ice cream because frozen yogurt for me, I feel like I've never liked it. Like, it's really gooey, and like I feel like with ice cream, it's like you can eat it down to the cone.
No, you go first.
Okay. I think I also prefer ice cream just because it's like, I don't know, I like the consistency better.
Frozen yogurt. I think it's less sweet than ice cream, and you can put toppings.
Same here. I'm frozen yogurt all the way. Okay. So would you mind introducing yourself, Miss Sulem, talking a little bit about your career and how you got into it and what you're doing now?
Yeah. So my name is Sulem, and I am 44 years old, and I was born in Mexico. I was born there, and I grew up there. I don't have any family in this country. So I come from a non-migrant family, and I ended up in the United States by kind of an accident. My husband was offered a job here, and then we came to this country. But so all my family is still in Mexico. I have 3 children, and I am married to someone from England. We met in Germany when we were studying. And before I met him, I studied in Australia and in Germany, and then from the UK we moved to the Bay Area.
That's so amazing. I'd love to hear a little more about how you ended up studying in so many different places, and also how your career has formed now that you're in the States.
I guess from the very beginning, at home, I'm an only child, and I was born in the 80s. So for my parents, it's not a common thing to only have one child in Mexico. So I'm a only child, and there was no option for me but to go to university. So they devoted all their work and then attention for me in my education. And so I was sent to private schools all the time. And I think they expected me to have a good job, and they thought that by learning different languages that could improve my possibilities. So as soon as I finished university, I got a job in an international firm in Mexico, and I had the opportunity to have, working with people from different countries. And then I was just inspired by other options, by other ways of living in different countries. So I decided to take an exchange, and I went to Australia. In Australia, I spent a semester there at the University of Brisbane, meeting people from all over the world, and then I came back to Mexico. I wanted to stay there for longer, but it was just too far and too expensive for my parents to support me. So when I went back to Mexico, I had that feeling of I want to continue and exploring the world outside, and I researched different countries. And Germany at that time, where they were offering scholarships for people that wanted to learn German, and more options. So after learning German intensively, you could take a test, and if you pass that test, like a language proficiency test, then you could stay and study abroad, in Germany. And so that's what I did. So I left Mexico, and I didn't know anybody in Germany. I just went, and I lived with a family there. And I would work every day. I would go to study from 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock German. In the afternoon, I was, getting some small jobs like babysitting and things like that. And then I did that for a year. I passed a test, and I started a master's degree. In between, I also worked for a company, the same company that I worked in Mexico, which was PricewaterhouseCoopers. I work in Germany. And in that transition, I met my at that time, my boyfriend, now my husband. I finished my master's. He was from England. We moved to England. And one day he came back and said, hey, someone offered me a position, a temporary position to work in San Jose. Shall we go? And I said, you go, I'll stay. Because the type of visa that they were offering for me was a spouse visa. And so that would allow me to come and live here, but I was not allowed to work. And I was just, he had an H-1B. So that would not give me the opportunity to put in practice all my knowledge. So we lived in 2 different countries for 2 years until we have to come to the decision that I had to move to the US.
That's an amazing story just about the way that you were so persistent in your education and made so many interesting choices that aren't really a strategic or like straightforward path in order to continue pursuing your education and further your career. I'm interested to hear from either Briza or Levi how you're growing up, like your parents having siblings or not having siblings, how that you think will influence your trajectory in your academics.
Well, I was a only child for so long till I was 13, and I was always thinking of myself like growing up like as an only child. I didn't really think of what would my life be with a sibling, and then all of a sudden, I got a brother, and then that completely changed everything in my life. I think I matured a lot faster because I think growing up with being a teenager and like having to take care of like a baby is like it changes a lot, I think. And I think I became a lot more aware of how people can be, how scary some things are, especially, as well as how social media and so much of the internet can really impact someone's life. So I think I not only just grew protective of myself and my surroundings, but also of my siblings, my family, and how I respect others and how they should respect me. So I think a lot of my moral compass changed from that, and like just growing up with a sibling and, like not expecting so much.
Thank you for sharing.
My whole sibling thing is very complicated. From my mother's side, I'm the youngest. I have an older sister, but we don't like know each other like to a big extent because our age gap is like really big. From my dad's side, I'm the oldest. And I know I have 2 sisters, but apparently there's like 6 in total. But I also don't really like talk to them because like different mother and all that, and they're all in Mexico. And then the only sister that I have here from my mother's side lives all the way to Oregon. So I don't know, it's very complicated on that part. But I'd say I think being able to still have like some type of relationship with them, even if it's not like the strongest, but it's like to some extent, right? But I do notice a difference between me and my sister from my mom's side, which is that we tend to get like, even though we fight sometimes, we tend to like talk about it and stuff like that, right? And we still try to keep up some type of relationship. Well, me and my sisters from my dad's side, because we're not really that connected, and we're like, yeah, he doesn't really like get us together. It's like much more different than the relationship that I have with my yeah.
I think both of those stories kind of connect to this, like, not necessarily the most traditional path, but finding connection and figuring that out in a non-traditional path. Ms. Sulem, would you talk a little bit about your job right now, how you came into it, what you do?
Yes, so I'm in San Rafael High School. I teach AP Government, AP Macroeconomics soon in January, and World History. So I've been a teacher in the United States for a decade, so like 10 years, yes. And I ended up becoming a teacher because, again, my circumstances. So I have a PhD in sociology, and my dream was to become a professor. And so I completed my PhD and I started teaching in the United Kingdom. And when I came to this country, again with this visa, I could not work for 4 years. The government allowed me to be here, but I was not working until I get my work permit and things like that. So during those 4 years, I had my 2 children, and it was really difficult for me not being able to put into, just put like all my knowledge into practice. And as soon as got my work permit, I said, what do I do with this? I need to work. I'm not the type of woman who's going to be a full-time mom. And so I found a way to be engaged, and I knew I wanted to be in education. So I followed the steps and I got a credential for becoming a high school teacher. And this is how I ended up. So, and I actually studied political science and economics. So that's what I do. Mm-hmm.
Could I ask, why did you specifically want to become a professor?
And actually I was taking notes that I like the concept of creating knowledge. I have a very curious mind, I would say. I'm always reading and researching, and I'm fascinated with what's next. What else can I learn? What else can I do? And I thought I found that was the perfect place to put in practice my passion. And writing my ideas and publishing my ideas, that was something that was very attractive to me. Mm-hmm.
Can I ask, what did you teach when you were in the United Kingdom?
So, because my PhD was sociology, I was in the sociology department, gender mainly, like gender studies. I also teach, what was the other class? A gender in the social work arena. So everything related with how society treats mainly women, and political science too, from the gender perspective. Mm-hmm.
Another question, real quick.
Yeah, please.
What's the biggest culture shock you've seen, like United Kingdom, Germany, and the US and Mexico?
I think that my number one is how I became a minority. So growing up in Mexico, I was one of the dominant society. I'm not saying that there's no minorities there, but I was one of the dominant society individual. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to the other countries, like in Germany, well, there's not many Mexicans there in Germany. There's not many Mexicans in the UK. So I was like an immigrant, but I was like the kind of like weird special immigrant. And when I came to this country, it was completely the opposite. I was put in a box of, you are a Latino, most likely you don't speak English properly, and most likely you are uneducated. And so that was a big shock for me. Trying to prove myself over and over just because people assume things about a specific group of people. So becoming a minority was a big shock for me.
That's fascinating to hear. In what ways was it differently challenging to come to a place, like you said, where there's this stereotype already versus somewhere that has so few that it's kind of, you're just an anomaly?
Well, when you don't have any established stereotype about a specific group of people, you kind of you are building that, right? Mm-hmm. Like they've never met someone from Mexico. Maybe they heard about news about Mexico, but they don't really know someone. So there's no really expectations, and that's kind of like a fresh start from someone. But when you come to a place where there's a lot of stereotypes about a specific group of people, and you come with a different kind of experiences, you need to kind of break assumptions and stereotypes all the time.
That makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. In terms of teaching high school now, what do you find rewarding in teaching high school students, and what's maybe something that's challenging?
Challenging is, well, it's a very difficult job, and I don't think many people really understand how difficult it is to be a teacher, and especially if you are the type of teacher that really cares about delivering good content. Mm-hmm. Challenging, that's trying to make sure that what you're teaching is relevant, what you're teaching has structure, and that you can kind of captivate minds within a classroom, especially with this type of society where you guys are so busy with so many things, you have so many homework to do. How do I make my curriculum relevant to you? That's pretty challenging. Rewarding is the outcomes of that. When you see that people actually pay attention to what I'm saying, people are actually learning in your classroom, and it's just like the relationship that you establish with the students are very rewarding.
Absolutely. In what ways do you try to make your content in your classroom engaging or try to keep people engaged? And then I'd love to hear from your students who are here also after.
Well, as I said, my mind is very curious. I'm always learning. I every time I finish academic year, I go to a workshop to learn something new. I'm reading a new book. I'm learning some new strategy. I don't like to be just like repeating over and over, but making it better. Like, let's say I dedicate, this year I need to improve how to teach the executive power. So always trying to make something different, something relevant. What we used to be learning 10 years ago, we're not learning the same way now. So adapting to the times.
I really admire that. I've always thought that being a teacher must seem a little bit boring because you're teaching the same thing over and over year after year. But I really admire the way that you're constantly trying to adapt the way that you teach.
You could be that type of teacher that always teaching the same over and over. But if you want to do something that it actually matters to your students, you need to continue, like you never stop learning.
I appreciate that a lot. Levi and Briza, how being in her classroom, no pressure, not to put you guys on the spot here, but what's a way that she teaches that you found really engaging? Maybe a project or an approach?
I think engaging. I think the current events presentations are always very fun. Like, I'm very glad that's like it's something that we can do. So it's like we get we have to do like a presentation about a current event. We get like a specific date in which we do that, and then we make like a slideshow and a presentation about like something about current events that has to do with government and politics, and it's always very, very insightful. I think I always talk about those presentations, like even at home. I'm like, did you know this? Did you know that, to like my family or my friends? And I think it's very, your class is very engaging. I think it might be one of the most engaging classes that I have. I think a lot of it is like just talking to the students, but like you really like you ask questions and you just call on people at random, and it makes me want to like really, really like engage in class and like really put in the work, and it helps a lot with learning.
So it sounds like you put a lot of effort into making your class something that people are both really actively engaged in, but also material that feels relevant to them and that they are involved, instead of just something that they have to memorize for a test or they're going to forget next year because it's not relevant any longer. Briza?
I was gonna say the same thing as Levi, but okay, coming from somebody who had you sophomore year and has you now senior year, right? There's a difference, right? I see like where you say that you try to make it new every year. Cause sophomore year, for some reason, I don't know. It felt like your class was difficult. It was probably more like the memorization that I had to do, because I struggle with that a lot. But I don't know, like this year, I think your class might be one of my favorite classes, because it's just the way you teach. Like, I actually memorize things, and I struggle a lot with that. Like my 10 amendments, I'm like it's getting stuck to me. I do have to think a little bit about it, but it's getting there, you know. And I think the fact that you take time to like connect with your students, that helps a lot, especially when you like. A lot of times, I feel like I don't have enough faith in myself. Right? Like on tests and stuff like that, I tend to switch my answer a lot because I feel like I always have it wrong. And then when I check the revisions, turns out my first answer was right? But you kind of helped me like start believing in myself more, because I see that you were able to do so many things, right? And especially as a woman that's like Latina like me, right? It's just it makes me feel like I can also do what I put my mind to, you know? So I think that's like the biggest thing.
Thank you.
That's so beautiful. Miss Sulem, how does it feel to be an inspiration to the students around
That's a
you?
big word. That's a big responsibility too. It just makes me emotional because I have a lot of passion for what I do, and I also have a lot of passion for my community. And oh my goodness, I'm here emotional. I just I'm very blessed that I'm in San Rafael, because before I was not teaching among Latinos, and now I am. Used to be an Asian population, and just being with them and just, I don't know, providing options to them. It really makes me even more passionate about my job. So it's a lot of responsibility, but a lot of it's very rewarding too.
Yeah. So Levi mentioned that you do try to incorporate current events into the classroom. Is there any other ways that they're incorporated other than what she was talking about with the presentations?
Well, we learn politics, and we're going to be learning economics. So I think the class is learning the foundations, which is heavy in terms of theory of all documents, but we always put in practice those boring documents. If we talk about the Declaration of Independence, we always link that to what's happening today and whether that's still relevant. Or in the types of projects that we create or we have, we always try to make them relevant, like what we are doing today and whether that still applies to our society. So this is how I try to incorporate those current events.
I appreciate that. It sounds like it kind of adapts in the same way that you're constantly adapting, like you said, every year, your teaching styles and expanding your teaching credentials in terms of, the way that you teach.
I had a question. Actually, you said you do a lot of things, right? And I'm just wondering, how do you find time? How do you manage?
Like things like outside the house or...
Because you said that you can never really like stay still. Does that make sense?
That's a bad thing, honestly, sometimes.
For learning and all that? Like, how do you find time to go to different like workshops or...
Well, during my summer, okay, so I was thinking about, so I did not want to lose my identity when I became a mother. So I wanted to still be a woman who learns. I'm a woman and I am a mother. So for me, once I have my job, what can I do to improve that thing that provides happiness and passion for me? So out of the 2 months that we have of holidays, I dedicate like 1.5 months for my children. And the other 2-3 weeks, I normally go to workshops. I said to my husband, it's time for my personal growth, for my personal learning. So go to workshops. Last time I went to San Diego for macroeconomics. I go to Utah for my AP reading. And so I think making sure that my children know and my husband knows that I'm not just a wife or a mother. I'm also a professional. It's very important for me.
I think that's a really big inspiration. Like, I know I talk to my friends. I'm like, guys, Miss Sulem, I want to be like her when I grow up. Like,
no.
she's so cool. Like, I mean, like talking about the workshops, like that's really cool. And I'm glad that you still like can keep your identity even as a mom. That's something to be so proud of.
Yeah, I guess for women, it's like, seems like we become mothers and that's it, right? That's the end of the path. Oh my gosh. And then you feel the guilt that you're not giving the time to your kids. But kids learn through the examples. And if you teach, especially I have 2 girls, that yes, it's important to be a mother, but it's also important to become a career woman who is always improving. That's for me something that I want to teach them. Now, there are women that find happiness and by just being at home, absolutely fine. But has to be a choice. That's something that I always argue. If that's what you choose, wonderful, but not because society has dictated that you have to do that.
Absolutely. Speaking of that and going back to all the places you've lived and studied, how have you seen that narrative represented in different countries, and or how have you been received as a female scholar in those different settings?
Well, good and bad. So, I mean, I guess my experiences have mainly been positive. Until you don't have those positive ones. I could definitely speak from the U.S. perspective. The fact that I have degrees from different countries, but I also don't fit the stereotype of an educated woman. What that means, right? Like I'm short, I'm brown, and all those things that people don't. Unfortunately, they don't. We have an image of that, so it's like proving yourself again. Like you have to kind of explain, and sometimes your actions are going to convince the people that you actually are what you are saying, what you arguing you are.
How do you find the, not strength, but like how do you continue wanting to go through proving yourself and continue bettering yourself while people are constantly not believing in you?
I don't know. I sometimes really don't know. And sometimes I've been very weak and I have to go back and cry. And, one of the sad things that often happens to me is that when I go out with my kids, I have asked many times if I'm the nanny of my children, right? And so sometimes it's crazy, I don't care. And sometimes it's like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm so tired. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. So I guess, again, I have the responsibility of 3 little ones that are seeing. Do I give up and just cry? Or to just like move on and just keep going? I also have to recognize that the privilege that I have is that even within the Latino community, I'm married to a software engineer who has a job in tech, and we live in mainly a white neighborhood. Actually, nobody else but us is brown. So in the where we live, so I want to make sure that my actions are not impacting negatively my children, because my children are brown and they go to school that are mainly, I mean, they are the minority. So how do I show that they should not be impacted by people's ideas?
Absolutely. Raising your kids in, just you growing up in Mexico and then raising your kids in the States and in a predominantly white area, how has that, I mean, of course, I'm sure there's a lot of different ways, but what's something that maybe you see as a disadvantage that like maybe you're like, I had this in my childhood and I wish that my kids were getting it too?
Culture. Like I speak Spanish to my kids, and I wish they could have the richness of our culture that I don't have around. They don't have any friend who speaks Spanish, so the only Spanish is with me or my relatives, and that's why we have a Spanish tutor at home. I think that's what I think I miss that they could have now. So my husband is British Asian, and I'm Mexican, and they are Americans, and we both don't have that family that could provide that richness from both cultures.
I see, yeah, for sure. Okay, going a little bit back to the current events, I'm curious about the government shutdown, if you have any insight on that. I think that's something that is obviously a current event that people are talking about a lot right now, and there's kind of some confusion about what that really means. I'm not sure if you've been following it that closely, but do you have any insight about what that does mean specifically for, students who are your students' age and our age, who would be kind of curious about what that means?
It means that the government doesn't have approved the budget or the money that we will be spending for the next fiscal year. That's it. And if there is not an agreement that has to be passed by both senators and House of Representatives, we cannot spend the money. As simple as that, right? It's not like my mom hasn't approved how to spend the money. And unfortunately, if we don't have the money, then we cannot exercise the activities that we normally do. And unfortunately, once again, the most affected by that are the people that more vulnerable, right? The very wealthy people, they have savings and they have most of the economic resources. The people that are very vulnerable, that are dependent on the government's subsidies, are the ones that are more affected by this. Once again,
Yeah.
and yes, we do follow a lot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In addition to the community and, like you were saying, vulnerable communities, are teachers impacted at all as a class by the government shutdown, or is that
No.
not related?
Because there's something called federalism, right? There's something that is run by the federal government and something that is run by the state government. And education is something that is run by the state government. So some aspects of our education, like special education, I think the money comes from there. But most of the money that is based in education is based on the states. So luckily we are not.
Okay. So that is not related, but I do know that in the last year or two, there's been other educational funding cuts. Have you had those impact your school or your curriculum?
Yes. Right now we just have one because our district doesn't have enough money even to provide for field trips, or we cannot hire any more teachers, or we cannot add any other subject. Like in our school, I wish we could offer more elective classes, but we cannot because we don't have any budget, or we don't have enough budget. So we have to just stick to the basic ones that people need for graduation.
Okay. Is there anywhere in particular that, well, you said electives, I guess. So is there any elsewhere that you wish there was a little more money, or you feel a need for money within the school?
Well, even our classrooms, the furniture, right? I think we need to have something newer, more comfortable.
Wait, is that why they gave us like those big binders for AP government?
Like something like that. Like I wanted to make some booklets for my students, and because we didn't have any money to print it outside, they say we can print them within the school and we can put it in binder instead of providing with something more portable for the students.
Oh, wow. Okay.
See, since it's not required, then they see this as an extra expense, and so they cannot provide that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything that is not technically, as a teacher, specifically a public school teacher, you have to follow a curriculum, of course. Is there anything outside of the curriculum that you find really important to make sure that your students are taught about?
I guess I think more about art. I mean, I'm not talking about my class in general, right? But I think we should provide more opportunities for the students to be more creative. Hopefully we could do more about taking them out of the classroom to have more experience so they can apply what they're learning. Probably more technical like workshops where for those that are not going to university or college, they could learn some more crafts or technical
Trade skills.
Trades, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Levi and Briza, what kind of learner would you say you are? Do you think that you're more of like a visual learner? Do you like hear things and that works? Like audio, visual? Do you need to write it down to remember stuff?
I have to connect things.
Like kind of real world?
No, like for example, I had this test, right? And like case studies, right? Whenever there's like any names, there's like this, for example, there's this case about, it's called Angel, right? That the person is Angel.
Okay.
It's about like, so basically they were like, putting, what's the word? Prayers in schools, right? And they didn't feel like the students didn't feel like that was
Okay.
right
Mm-hmm.
because freedom of religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to connect angel to like the angel, you know,
Oh,
because like
yeah,
prayers.
yeah.
So I think that's like for me, that's the biggest thing. I had to make connections in order to actually like
That makes
get that
sense.
stuck in my
Okay.
mind.
Okay, what about you, Levi?
I'd say the same thing. Like, I think I like synthesizing things and like connecting things is also like even like just like I think that helps with memorization. Like, I've been learning Portuguese. It's like I think while I'm learning it, I have to like combine some of the words and think about different words that can connect to those words. Like a lot of it is similar to Spanish, so I think of some Spanish words when I say it. It's like
that makes
I think
sense.
yeah, kind of like that. I'm not sure what that's called though.
Yeah, there's a name. I don't know what it is. But anyways, my question for you, Miss Sulem, would be how do you handle, you're not able to teach one-on-one for the most part. So how do you make sure that the most amount of people are having the best educational experience when everyone comes from a different background, a different learning style, all those things?
It's very difficult, almost impossible to do that. My way to do it, I don't know if you can help me with that. First is try to get to know the student, try to make some connections. When we do assessments, I make my very best to provide individualized feedback. So instead of just saying, "Oh, this is wrong, this is right," so provide individualized feedback, and I just kind of talking to them every so often, and I think that's the way. I know that we cannot connect with everybody. We cannot provide the best education that everyone deserves because we don't have the time or the resources. But I guess many of my colleagues, the teachers, would try our best. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, so like kind of doing your best to establish relationships to the extent that you're able to.
But I think I think that's like a really big fundamental. I think just like connecting and like I see you do that a lot with different students in class. Like you'll ask them like, "How's your day been? How's your weekend?" It's nice to see that a teacher really cares about, students like that.
That's pretty much what Lee was saying. Like you do, I think at least in my experience, you do connect a lot with students, right? You also kind of like give like people the strength to keep on going, if that makes sense. Like I try a lot more in your class, because I don't want you to like see me fail. So yeah.
Sorry for the pressure.
So that kind of answered my next question, which is just going to be like, how does your academic experience differ in classes where you feel like the teacher is more engaged with you on a not personal level, but like sees you as an individual?
I think, I don't know, I'd say I think I just tend to focus more on like what I can do to help improve myself and my academics in their classroom. Because I feel like if a teacher is getting to like know you, not just like, I think it just really, it makes me want to try, like what Briza was saying, like try, and it's like trying hard in every class, but just trying to make a little bit more impact in that class and putting in a little more effort because, you see effort being done for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like when you actively see that effort being put to you, you feel like you need to reciprocate and put that effort into yourself so that you're doing the best that you can.
I mean, like the easiest way to put it would be that the more connected you are to your teacher, the more real that class feels, right? And therefore you try like harder on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you put a lot of responsibility though sometimes. It's like it's hard because every single student is so different, and we wish we could get to know each of them more to serve them better, right? But yeah, it's just time, resources. Sometimes we can't.
Yeah.
We cannot, but we try our best.
Unfortunate for sure. Miss Sulem, if there was a question or two that you wish you knew about you could ask your students, what would that be?
What do you mean? Like if I had a track,
if you were given an open opportunity like this podcast here, to just ask your students anything, what would that be? Like what do you feel like what would your question be if you have one?
I think it would be different from each of my students.
Yeah, 'cause that
absolutely.
connects with the same individual.
Yes, I don't think a general question would be applicable for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I know Briza for 3 years, so I would ask something different from Levi. I know Levi is very community engaged, and I know that she is very much into social justice. So my question would be different from Briza, who is an extremely ambitious Latino woman, same like you, but it's also very. She's also very giggly, funny, and always pretty like kind of bubbly, I would say, right?
Yeah.
So it's just getting to know that each person is different, and my question would be different.
Yeah, for sure. How does it feel, Levi and Briza, to hear almost evidence that, like, you know that Miss Sulem was paying attention to you as an individual person, but just kind of hear that as, like, evidence that she's really paying attention to you?
I feel more aware. Like, I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I like her class, but I feel like, well, I already knew that she was paying attention because we like had this conversation before. But like, it feels nice to know like there's a teacher out there that's actually caring for her students.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember when you left for 2 weeks during the sophomore year, and you came back, and I was very worried that you could not catch up with the material, and you had a lower grade that you actually deserve. I remember that you left for 2 or 3 weeks. So it was hard for me to see, and I knew that you were like protesting last year for social justice in the Golden Gate Bridge and things like that, right? So yeah, I follow them.
I love that.
Yeah, and then to answer your question, I feel like knowing that, like, it's nice, it's always nice, and I always want to build relationships with my teachers because they're amazing people who have like this like amazing job, so
Yeah,
it's really nice.
no, I absolutely agree. Personally, just like, there's teachers that you have different levels of connections with, and the ones who I feel like really connected to, and just like on a more individual level, I certainly feel more accountable, and also I think, like you were saying earlier, Levi, just like you see the effort they put in and you want to match that or exceed it. So how do you encourage your students to be politically active, socially active, like in the space, especially, if they wanted to but felt like maybe their voice didn't deserve to be heard or they wouldn't make an impact?
How do I encourage them? I guess I do it, or I try to do it. Like, for instance, we just had this project about reimagining the message from Martin Luther King. And that was for me a way to make sure that I could hear everybody's voices and different worries within the society. So I know that I have a Muslim student who is very much advocating for that. I have my Latino students who are worried about immigration. I have some of my footballers writing a letter to, what's the name of this footballer, that the guy who was protesting from the 49ers.
Oh, I know. I don't know his name, but I know who you're talking
about. And so through those projects, some people are more artistic than others. I am trying to engage them in that, and then also like researching current events and doing the presentations. And then in third period, when I have a class that is like literally I cannot stop them talking. Like it's like the conversations that we have after the current events, they're just so engaged, and it's really nice to see them. I wish I could just say, okay, we're not teaching, we're just going to be talking about that. But I have very engaged students. Other classes are a little bit more like shy, but always like, what do you think? What's your perspective on that? Yeah.
I really love how you make an effort to engage people in ways that might not come across as like the first thing. Like you were talking about the football. I think that's so cool because definitely, I don't think anyone really, but certainly not me, when you think about political activism, is football the first place my mind goes to at all. And I think that's so cool that you found a way to reach your students in where their interests lay and where their priorities lay, and then still encourage them to be active members of the community and, you know, make a positive difference, hopefully.
Yes, we try our best.
So there were some recent things that were voted on, such as the passage of Prop 50. Have you discussed that in class at all? Do you have any thing you'd want to mention about that? Because that's a really big change and another thing that I think people don't entirely understand.
Yes, so we talk about that in class, and it's just like redrawing the congressional districts, which means how many and what type of representatives will get in the House. And so whether people choose for Republicans or Democrats. By maneuvering or redrawing the districts, we hope in California to obtain more seats, more Democratic seats, in order to counteract the more Republican seats that were they will be obtaining in Texas because they did the same. So we talk about that, and we talk about why some people they voted yes because it's a quick solution to what which is something going against Trump. But from the constitutional perspective, I also explain my students that what we're doing, it's not a good long-term solution because we're doing like proper gerrymandering, and I don't think people are represented the way they should be represented. And we provide the constitutional aspects of that, and we connect that with cases that have been discussed before by the Supreme Court, and then they make their mind whether it was a yes or whether it was a no. And I want them to make sure that their connections or their choices are not just based by their passions, which is I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, but no, the choices have to be based by the reality of that situation. We talk about that, and we talk about the consequences and the outcomes of this.
I believe that's so important. Like you were saying, not just pledging allegiance to a party or to a candidate, and actually really diving into what you're actually voting on, not just like the label you're voting for. I think it's really admirable that you aren't so engaged with current events in your classroom. I'm also in AP Gov at, a different school, and I think my teacher does a really good job at her job, but she is not as engaged in the current events connection, which I completely understand. She has a lot of stuff to cover, not a lot of extra time. I'm sure you feel that as well in your classroom. And also, the amount of polarization, the amount of divisiveness that's going on in current events right now, I could understand how it would be really easy to shy away from talking about that. But I really appreciate that you still bring that into your classroom in a neutral and information-based way.
Yes, just everything from knowledge, not just your passions.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I wanted to ask Levi and Briza, do you have any last questions that you'd like to ask Ms. Sulem?
Yeah. I don't know for my period, but like during third period, I know a lot of people talk, but in your other periods or maybe in mine, have there been debates ever, any political debates students have had between each other?
Like real fights or something like that?
Yeah.
Not yet. I experienced that in previous years, really debated, especially during the elections last year. That there were a group of students that were openly either for the Democrats or for the Republicans. But so far this year, it's been pretty mild in terms of debates.
Do you have any question, Briza?
How do you handle when there is actually debates? Because it's, first of all, I'm assuming that it's really difficult to keep a whole classroom in order, right? But especially when there's actual debates and disagreements.
Disagreements.
How do you manage to keep everything in order?
I think what I do is what I would like to see in my government in this country, because now I am part of the society and I'm American too. What I would like to see is I want to hear the other side. I want to hear the different opinions, and that's how I let my students interact. So no interruptions. Let's listen to their perspective, and you listen to their perspective, and probably we realize that we have a lot of similarities. So my handling of these debates is, as long as they respect each other, I don't intervene until they continue having a conversation. At some point, I will say, okay, it's time to move on.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What do you define as American?
Ooh.
That depends. It very much is in an individual thing. For me, American is I passed the citizenship test and I have a passport, right? However, my identity is, if someone else, what's your identity? Someone asked me, what's your identity? Is I'm Mexican, right? But American for me is I have done everything that I needed to do to be
Check the box.
like check the boxes, pass the test. I have a passport and I am able to politically participate in my country and have a choice. Yours might be different.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting question. Briza, what do you answer your own question? For you, what does it mean to be American?
Well, I feel like just moving in, like, I don't know. I feel like being American is like such a complex thing, right? Because obviously there's Native Americans, right? That's like Americans, right? But then there's like also being able to come here and like being able to say, oh, I live in America, I'm American. You know what I mean? Like, even though my parents are like Mexican, like I was born here, right? And despite like my ethnicity being Hispanic, I can say like I'm American.
Yeah.
Right? But like even like those who live like who weren't even born here, right? Like if they've lived here for like years, they can say I'm American, right? So I think because America is built on immigration, I think there's not really like a full on definition as to what truly is American. Because like I think the way I kind of perceive America is as like the ability to a new chance that you might have not had before.
And that's something beautiful about this country, that you can reinvent yourself. From the very beginning was done like that. Unfortunately, we have put aside others in that reinvention, but that's something that we need to celebrate, that it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself.
Absolutely. Levi, do you have anything to add on that?
I think for being American, I think American is such a big word. I know that like in my family, like my family's always like, oh, los Americanos, when they refer to white people, because they think, like Americans can only be white. But Americans can be anyone, It could be someone from like across the other side of the world. They can just come, apply, do anything,
And our role now is to make sure that we communicate that we belong. And because we belong, we have rights, and we're going to be fighting for those rights. And we have to sometimes re-educate our own parents. Yeah, like, no, because I'm brown, I don't belong. Yeah, so it's also our role to re-educate ourselves and probably our families and our communities.
What about you, Emmerson?
For me, I agree with both of you. I think that American is, if you feel American, like, good, great, check, you're an American now. I don't know, like you were saying, it's so many different things, so many different people. I mean, if I was to think about it, I don't know, you've lived here for 5 years and you like feel like you're not leaving anytime soon, like, sure, I don't know. I honestly don't have an answer, because it's kind of like whatever you want it to be. But Miss Sulem, I love how everything you connect back to learning. You did all this education, you went to so many different countries just to learn, to expand your knowledge. Now you teach as your career. So you're, of course, incredibly invested in learning and helping others to learn. And then you still learn yourself and better yourself. And I just think that's so incredible. And like you were just saying about, re-educating family, yourself, I think we need to continue educating as a nation and individually because, knowledge and even re-understanding knowledge and reinterpreting knowledge as life continues, as we adapt and evolve is just so important. And I really appreciate the way that your story highlights that. Yeah. Do you have any final message that if you wanted to have a bigger audience of young people, of course you have your classrooms where I'm sure you are very able to share things with people, but do you have any message for younger people in general?
I guess one of the things that I've noticed, and I wish we could do more about it, is people are afraid of sharing their thoughts because sometimes they think that might not be valuable or they might be judged. As long as they are respectful, I will encourage them to share their ideas, ask questions, and just be curious about the place where they're living, and just questioning, so they can have a better understanding of their own selves in this society.
I think that's beautiful. That's so beautiful. Levi, Briza, do you have anything quick to add to that, or do you feel like she kind of said it?
I think Miss Sulem said it.
Yeah, I agree.
I really like your mentality, I don't know. I feel like there's so many teachers that just teach because there's like breaks and all that, But then I feel like as students, right? It's like I'm a student, right? Like you can feel the passion when it comes to teaching styles and all that. There's a difference. There's a noticeable difference, and it really shows. So I think I think I'd say thank you for actually taking care of us and making sure we're fine and all that.
Thank you for
really
saying those nice words.
Okay, I think the moral of the story is that we need to keep learning and keep sharing our voice. And thank you so much for joining us, Miss Sulem.
Thank you for inviting me, guys.
And thank you for tuning into Tay Radio, where we dive deep into stories, culture, and community. If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can follow us on social media at Tay Radio Marin for updates and more ways to stay connected. Listen to us on Spotify, and you can also watch full episodes at YouTube at Tay Radio Marin. For more resources or to get involved, visit our website at Multicultural Center of Marin. See you all in the next episode.